And once this is complete, then we can break for morning tea. Is Brian Mackay here? Yes, right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do apologise. It was my complete oversight, and I apologise.
We were sitting anxiously in the background waiting our turn.
Yeah, sorry.
So I also wish to point out that it's actually, you've got two for the price of one. That my colleague is Mr. Brian Smith, who's a member of the committee of Mount Pleasant Yacht Club, and I'm Richard Mackay. I'm the Commodore of the Mount Pleasant Yacht Club. And yes, we would like...
So you're not Brian Mackay, you're Brian and Mr. Mackay.
That's right, it's been collapsed into one.
Right, thank you.
So yes, with your consent, we do wish to hark back to the previous discussion that you've heard about, most particularly, the Scott Park part of where the coastal pathway is likely to be going. Mount Pleasant Yacht Club has had a 78-year actually residency of Scott Park. We are the leaseholders of the southwestern half of the park, and the coastal pathway must necessarily go at some place through the property which we are currently leasing, a lease which runs for another 10 years or so. In doing so, I wanted to endorse the words that you've heard from Alan Taylor from Wind Sports Association, and therefore what I can say is emphatic, and you'll be relieved to learn commendably brief. We are delighted that the coastal pathway will go through Scott Park for the advantages it will bring to the citizens of Christchurch and of course to ourselves. And we support the alignment of the pathway that is shown on the Main Road Master Plan, which has the coastal pathway running parallel and adjacent to the new main road, and that is simply because we consider that to be by far the most safe option. You have heard suggestions of an alternative option where the pathway would meander through the middle of Scott Park, and we're talking about a 4-metre pathway through the middle of a possibly perhaps 100-metre wide park. And in doing so, a meandering pathway through the middle would create multiple points where the pathway and sport, vehicular and pedestrian traffic would intersect. Now that traffic from the point of view of the yacht club will include cars towing trailers or SUVs towing trailers. Some of the trailers will be likely to be trailer sailor size, and there will be smaller dinghies on trailers and smaller dinghies rigging on one or other side of the pathway. Scott Park is a park for all water-related activities, and club use will be supplemented by public use, particularly of the south ramp and the projected pontoon near the south ramp, which will be public facilities. Once the park is landscaped, we anticipate the use of the park to increase markedly, and it is already used extensively at high tides during weekdays. So the hazards I'm outlining about the intersection of the traffic and the potential coastal pathway are in addition to those that were outlined to you by Wind Sports Association. The Main Road Draft Master Plan acknowledges that the pathway can be expected to be used by walkers, and I quote, cyclists of all ages and abilities, including people with mobility and sensory impairment, or in the words of one respondent to the public consultation, bikes, trikes, scooters, prams, strollers, elderly and rollerbladers. And Mr. Lindley's photograph made exactly that point. A picture of an adult on a bike with 2 children, all with crash helmets on the back of the bike, and that is what we are concerned about. We are not concerned about walkers walking through the pathway. They are at liberty to roam through the park as they will, and we welcome them. What we are concerned are those trikes, bikes, scooters, prams with 1 or more people on them. After considering over 2 years several options to improve safety, the safest one is outlined in the draft Main Road Master Plan, and you have seen that, and I won't mention that more. Main Road Master Plan comments a balance needs to be struck between the various park users to make sure that the alignment of the pathway is safe and avoids conflict. This is a view supported by Mount Pleasant Yacht Club, and our side of the bargain is that as leaseholders of the southwestern half of the park, we would have pleasure in negotiating a variation to our deed of lease that allows a coastal pathway to travel parallel and adjacent to the main road. There has already been an extensive public consultation that Mr. Taylor has spoken about on the plan, including the Scott Park adjustments, a consultation that expressed an opinion amongst those who offered an opinion overwhelmingly favoured the published plan. And therefore Mount Pleasant Yacht Club requests the council to ratify that published plan as it stands, with the Scott Park part both in concept and en route, and it is our limited view that sending the park plan, the coastal pathway plan, and or the draft Main Road Master Plan to further hearings as recommended by the Community Board will do much to consume time, but will do little to improve the consultative process. Thank you.
Are there any questions? No questions? Raf, Manji.
In terms of the concern about cyclists coming through, is there any way that we could just put up signs saying either if there is some activity, boating activity going on, let's say on a Saturday afternoon, that cyclists dismount and walk the cycles through? Because it seems that most of the time there isn't going to be activity going on there. So at the times where there is activity, why not just put some signs up and get people to dismount?
It's certainly been widely discussed that, that signs be erected or supplemented, in fact, by barriers and speed humps and so on and so forth, which will probably do very little about the bikes, trikes and prams, and seems to defy the concept of a coastal pathway, which is an open through route. And I personally cannot see, with the ability for people to break out from the coastal pathway into the park at leisure, where they will be extremely welcome, why there is any particular issue with running the through route adjacent to the road.
What's to stop people cycling across there now?
Just experience, they don't. There's grass, and shingle, they don't use
people use the same experience to know when they should be riding through full tilt.
And there will be no inhibition. Of course there will be no inhibition for people cycling across that if that's what they want to do. But the temptation to do so and having to dodge your way around cars, trucks and boats and so on and so forth, rigging on the various places, lawns and tarmacs, it's not actually congenial for cycling purposes.
Perhaps could I comment? I mean, if you've seen the park at the moment, it is a post-earthquake demolition site. And so we're starting from scratch, basically. And so that's why the pathway is part of the final landscaping design for the park needs to be built now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll adjourn for morning tea and be back here at 11:05.